It's 7:30 p.m. across India, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in Washington, D.C., Caroline Malone. Hello, Caroline.
Well, good morning, Tanvi. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we have more on Trump's trial in New York. With an outspoken defense witness on the stand, we're live outside the courtroom. But first, the headlines.
US President Joe Biden defends Israel's military campaign against Hamas in a rejection of International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor's arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister and Hamas leader in Gaza. Thousands mourn the death of Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi on the first day of funeral in Tabriz. India stands by Iran in this tragic time, says External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in a visit to Iran's embassy in New Delhi. A Singapore Airlines flight from London makes an emergency landing in Bangkok. One person confirmed dead due to severe turbulence while landing. 30 reported injured. And UK to begin making interim compensation payments to the victims of the contaminated blood products scandal. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak apologises for failure of successive governments. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has described a request by the International Criminal Court prosecutor for arrest warrants against him and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a disgraceful bid to interfere in the country's conflict with Hamas. Israel has also urged civilized nations to spurn ICC warrants, oppose the prosecutor's decision and stand by Israel.
We call on the nations of the civilized free world, nations who despise terrorists and anyone who supports them, to stand by Israel. You should outright condemn this step, like the US did, UK, Germany, Italy, and the Czech Republic, for instance. Make sure the ICC understands where you stand. Oppose the prosecutor's decision and declare that even if warrants are issued, you do not intend to enforce them.
Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu slammed the ICC prosecutor's move and added that the decision was meant to target all of Israel.
The International Criminal Court in The Hague is contemplating issuing arrest warrants against senior Israeli government and military officials as war criminals. This would be an outrage of historic proportions.
US President Joe Biden has also rejected the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders, saying there's no equivalence between Israel and Hamas.
We reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Whatever these warrants may imply, there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. And it's clear Israel wants to do all it can to ensure civilian protection. But let me be clear. Contrary to allegations against Israel made by the International Court of Justice, what's happening is not genocide. We reject that. We're going to always stand with Israel and the threats against its security.
Now, in contrast, the European Union, EU, has said that they support the International Criminal Court for its central role in bringing justice to the victims in all situations.
The Union, in this context, recalls that the International Criminal Court is an important and independent international institution whose mandate is to prosecute the most serious crimes under international law.
In Brussels, the Danish Foreign Minister also said that Denmark takes requests by the International Criminal Court of warrants very seriously.
It goes without saying that if international crimes are suspected, they must be, of course, uncovered and prosecuted, regardless of who committed them. Until now, I just have to say that the nuance you express in your question is not the one you might perceive in the general media landscape.
Next, DD India's Alex Cadier joins us for more on the story from Brussels now. Alex, similar arrest warrants have been issued by the ICC for Vladimir Putin in the past. And given the nature of allegations here, can the ICC arrest Israeli and Hamas leaders for war crimes?
Not directly. The ICC does not have the capacity nor the jurisdiction to arrest individuals itself, and that will be now the question for the 124 countries that are signatories to the Treaty of Rome, signatories to the International Criminal Court. It will be a big question as to whether or not they enforce it. We know that Omar al-Bashir of Sudan, who had arrest warrants issued for him, travelled to places like Chad and Kenya and South Africa, who are all signatories to the ICC, and did not arrest him. But this does mean in theory that in a couple months' time, when the judges decide whether or not these arrest warrants should be issued, Prime Minister Netanyahu will not be able to travel to places like here in Belgium where they are signatories to the ICC. Now, he will be able to go to the United States, to Russia, to China. Those countries do not recognize the authority of the court, but it will seriously limit his ability to travel around the world, because those 124 countries would be responsible for arresting him should he set foot on their territory. Another interesting aspect of this is that the ICC recognizes Palestine as a state, and therefore Palestine is a signatory also to the ICC, which means that any controlling authority, any legislative authority that takes control in the Gaza Strip after this war would also be required to arrest Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza, Mohammed Deif, who's his deputy, as well as Ismail Haniyeh, who is the political bureau leader of Hamas as well. So clearly this decision will take a couple of months. We'll have to wait to see what the judges decide, but it could have serious consequences for those leaders.
Alex Cadier in Brussels, thank you for those updates. Now, asked about the ICC prosecutor's decision to seek arrest warrants against some Israeli and Hamas leaders, Qatar said it was too early to comment directly, but added that all states and organizations should be held responsible for the killing of civilians. And next, on to talks between Israel and Hamas for a sustainable ceasefire in the conflict. Let's now go across to my colleague Caroline Malone, joining us from Washington, D.C. Caroline, over to you.
Well, in the latest on the conflict, Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson, Majed Al-Ansari, said the Gaza ceasefire and hostage release talks between Israel and Hamas remain close to a stalemate. On the ICC prosecutor's decision to seek arrest warrants against some Israeli and Hamas leaders, Al-Ansari said it was too early for Qatar to comment directly. However, he asserted that all states and organizations should be held responsible for the killing of civilians.
There is currently a stalemate in the negotiations, but the Qatari commitment and the commitment of the international parties continues to ensure the continuity of the negotiations. There is constant communication, but so far we have no update on this stalemate that His Excellency spoke about in his session at the Qatar Economic Forum.
Well, a defense witness in Donald Trump's criminal hush money case, whom the judge threatened to remove from the trial over his behavior, is returning to the stand on Tuesday as the trial nears its end. Trump's lawyers are hoping Robert Costello's testimony will help to undermine the credibility of a key prosecution witness. They've asked Justice Juan Merchan to dismiss the case before it concludes, arguing that it rests on the testimony of a witness. Well, Trump is accused of covering up a $130,000 hush payment to adult star Stormy Daniels to keep quiet regarding an alleged sexual encounter. Well, DD India's Sally Patterson joins us live from New York now. So, Sally, nearing its end, but what happens now?
Well, Caroline, on Monday we saw some of the most dramatic events take place here in New York City that we've seen so far in this historic hush money trial. We saw Judge Juan Merchan clear the courtroom because he was so frustrated at the witness on the stand. That was one of the defense's only witnesses, Robert Costello, a lawyer who at one time advised Michael Cohen. And the judge basically felt that he was giving him so much attitude that it was unacceptable. He told the media to leave, he told the jury to leave, and he quite seriously told off Costello. He said, "I'd like to discuss proper decorum in my courtroom." He says, "You don't give me side-eye and you don't roll your eyes. Do you understand that?" Well, Costello hopefully learned his lesson. He's back in court on Tuesday, continuing that testimony. The prosecution laid to rest its case on Monday. Now it was over to the defense, and we're not expecting to see very many more witnesses from them. There was a debate about whether Donald Trump himself would be taking the stand, but at the moment that's looking unlikely, which means that this case could really start to come to its end very soon indeed. What we're looking at in the next few days is the defense to finish off its side of the arguments. We're expecting that either on Tuesday, potentially later in this week. Then it will be over to both sides to make their closing arguments, each of them given that opportunity to basically round up their cases, try and rebut everything that the other side has said, and try and convince the jury that they are the ones who are the winners in this case. Then it will go over to the jury, who will be able to deliberate on this case, 12 of them in total. They'll have the opportunity to go away and discuss. They can go back to the court at any point and ask questions. Remember, this has to be a unanimous decision by the jury. They all have to vote one way or another, or there will be no final decision made in this historic case. If they decide that Donald Trump is indeed guilty, then it's up to the judge to sentence him. These cases, these individual counts can carry prison time of up to 4 years each. Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed his innocence. He's pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. He says that he's done nothing wrong on his way into court. He said this was a witch hunt, as he had repeatedly before. He's called this kangaroo court, and he said they have no case and there is no evidence against him. He is hoping, of course, to get back into the White House at the end of this year. He says being inside a courtroom every day means he's not able to be out on the campaign trail. He thinks that's deeply unfair. Caroline.
Thank you, Sally. Well, that was Sally Patterson reporting for us live from New York. Well, moving on. The UK government is settling a multi-billion-dollar compensation after an infected blood scandal, and they now have said that they would begin making interim compensation payments to the victims of the contaminated blood products scandal. Well, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has apologised on behalf of successive governments for the failure, which saw around 3,000 people dying. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Well, the government has now confirmed that interim payments can be made to people who have been victims of this scandal of around $250,000 US, and that those interim payments will be made within 90 days. There will then be some final payments and settlements which will be made, we're told, by the end of the year. For people who have already died, money will be paid to their relatives, to their family.
If you have been directly or indirectly infected by NHS blood, blood products, or tissue contaminated with HIV or hepatitis C, or have developed a chronic infection from blood contaminated with hepatitis B, you will be eligible to claim compensation under the scheme.
We know that around 3,000 people have died as a result of this scandal already, and that number is expected to rise as the years go on. Around 30,000 people in total were infected with contaminated blood as a result of this scandal during the 1970s, 1980s and the early 1990s. The inquiry report into the disaster, as it's being described, was released on Monday, and that pointed the finger of blame at doctors, at the National Health Service, at the UK government, at successive UK governments and ministers who were in positions in government over those decades. And one of the things the inquiry talked about was not just the initial failings in giving contaminated, infected blood to patients on the NHS, which led to some developing HIV and hepatitis, but also the cover-up afterwards, with the inquiry insisting that not enough was done by successive governments over the failures initially and, as I say, over getting to the bottom of exactly what happened afterwards. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
Well, 16 companies involved in artificial intelligence, including Alphabet's Google, as well as companies from China, South Korea and the United Arab Emirates, have committed to safe AI development as South Korea and Britain host a global AI summit in Seoul. The companies pledged to publish safety frameworks on how they will measure the risks of frontier AI models. DD India's John Beaver reports from Bristol.
Expanded list of companies who have signed up to develop AI safely. 16 global companies now involved, and these really are the giants of the industry. We have companies like you mentioned, such as Google, but also Microsoft and OpenAI, all pledging to develop AI safely. Also, the UK government very keen to point out that a Chinese AI company is involved as well. They're highlighting that as significant because, of course, you need some global agreement on the best way to regulate AI to try and mitigate any dangers there might be. Balancing safety versus progress is how a lot of the AI experts are currently weighing up this effort to try and regulate the industry. We've seen AI assistants being unveiled over the last days and weeks, and so there's always a concern that any regulation will fail to keep up with the rapid pace of change in this industry. The UK is really attempting to position itself as a world leader in AI. I was at the AI summit in Bletchley Park back in November, where a framework was announced to test these AI models, and the summit in South Korea is really building on that. There is, of course, a lot of concern about the misuse of this technology by what they call bad actors for things such as trying to influence elections. So certainly the UK government and the South Korean government very keen to say that progress has been made when it comes to regulating AI.
Well, the funeral ceremonies for Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi and those who died with him in a helicopter crash are underway. The remains of the Iranian president, foreign minister and others were taken to Tabriz, the capital of Iran's East Azerbaijan province. Tens of thousands of mourners were seen carrying posters of the president while following the funeral processions. The final burial for President Raisi will be on Thursday. Iran has declared 5 days of mourning in memory of those who were killed in the crash.
External danger has always brought the people to their knees. People have always been united against external danger throughout the history.
May their souls rest in peace. The nation is able to deal with this issue and everything will return to normal thanks to God. External dangers is a funny subject. They cannot happen because we live in a country whose strength is unity. They can never divide us. We are united.
Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Tanvi.
India is also observing a one-day state mourning as a mark of respect to Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi and Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian. The national flag of the country was at half-mast on all government buildings today, where it is customarily displayed. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar expressed his condolences towards the tragic passing away of the Iranian president. The External Affairs Minister visited the Embassy of Iran in New Delhi today. He also conveyed his condolences on the death of his Iranian counterpart, Hossein Amir Abdullahian. Taking to social media platform X, Jaishankar said that they will always be remembered as friends of India who contributed immensely to the growth of the India-Iran relationship. He also said that the government of India stands in solidarity with the people of Iran at this very difficult time. You're with us on DD India Global, still to come on the show. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba asks EU to speed up confiscation of Russian assets. And phase 5 of India's parliamentary elections sees over 60% polling. Baramulla in Jammu and Kashmir records its highest voter turnout in 35 years.
As India decides in the world's largest election,
we help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
We are in Assam. This is the tea city of India.
From down south, Tamil Nadu.
Discover the colors of democracy.
Gateway to northeast of India.
Coastal state of Kerala. Watch Poll Pulse on DD India.
Thank you for staying with us. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. In some sad news now, a Singapore Airlines flight from London made an emergency landing in Bangkok on Tuesday due to severe turbulence. One passenger died and multiple injuries have been reported in this incident. The plane was headed to Singapore from London with 211 passengers and 18 crew members on board. And next we have the latest on India's elections. So campaigning is in full swing as India decides for the last two phases of its parliamentary elections. It has reached a feverish pitch as leaders make a final push to secure the votes. India's Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi held a campaign rally in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. The Prime Minister of India addressed a public meet in Prayagraj and Varanasi as well. The Indian Prime Minister also addressed a public rally in Maharajganj, Bihar earlier today. He alleged that the India Alliance is not a political platform. It is the platform of scammers, he said. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also held public meetings, as we told you, in Prayagraj and Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh on Tuesday. On the other hand, opposition parties are also not leaving any stone unturned to woo the voters. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge held a public meeting in Haryana's Yamunanagar. He will also address a public rally in Haryana's Patode. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi Vadra and Samajwadi Party leader Dimple Yadav held a joint roadshow in Uttar Pradesh's Prayagraj today. And next we take a look at what else is happening around the world. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has asked the European Union to speed up confiscation of Russian assets. Russian frozen assets are worth around 260 billion euros, the amounts of which are not commensurate with the amount of frozen assets of Russia. Russian physicist Anatoly Maslov was convicted of treason on Tuesday and sentenced to 14 years in a penal colony. Maslov and a number of the others had conducted the theoretical work in areas relevant to the development of hypersonic missiles. Madrid has permanently recalled its ambassador in Buenos Aires over derogatory comments made by Argentine President Javier Milei in Spain. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Alvarez said that the embassy in Argentina would now be headed by the chargé d'affaires. Plunging reserves and sliding production and exports of natural gas have deepened the dollar crisis in Bolivia. Protesters took to the streets against the shortage of dollars and currency restrictions, forcing people to buy dollars in black markets at higher costs. Also, the crisis has impacted the availability of basic necessities to people. And now we take you to France, where the 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival is seeing a lot of stars come on the red carpet. American actor Kevin Costner appeared with 5 of his children on the red carpet at Cannes on Sunday as he debuted his film, Horizon: An American Saga. Director Sean Baker premieres Nora at the Cannes Film Festival on Tuesday. This film, starring Mikey Madison, who played the role of a young stripper from Brooklyn, falls in love with the son of a Russian oligarch. So that's it in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can catch all the latest news and updates on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And of course, you can download our DD India mobile app. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.